Hey everybody, this is Rusty again with Collector Auctions, and today I've got a short comic book haul video for you. Now, these are books that I've been picking up from a number of different places over the last couple weeks. I've got a couple of WhatNot orders here from a couple of sellers that were at the New York Comic Con. They're big-time YouTubers as well as WhatNot sellers, and they had exclusives from the show. I don't think they're their exclusives, but I definitely picked up some books from them. You saw one of my previous videos where I've been picking up some of these books from some of the YouTube shows that do WhatNot shows as well, and I've been picking up some New York Comic Con exclusives. So this is the end of that, and then I've got an order in from Heritage Auctions, and better than all that is over this last weekend I took a short trip. I managed to stop at 3 different comic book shops along the way, and I picked up keys in all 3 of them. One of them was one of my favorite books of all time, so we'll go over that as well. Now, before we get started, guys, we're only 2 days out from the Baltimore Comic Con. This is my local con. We have small shows here all the time, but this is the Baltimore Comic Con. This is a big time show. It is one of probably the 2 best shows in the country that focus exclusively on comic book artists. There's bigger shows, there's better shows probably, but you'll find that the focus isn't just on comic books, it's also on media and celebrities, and it takes away from some of the focus on the comic books themselves. And I'm telling you, these 2 shows, this show and the other one, I'm sorry, I said 2 shows, the other one in Charlotte, the Heroes Con, both of those shows are so good about being so focused on the creators and the comics and themselves. It's just, I don't want to say it's a pure show, but it's just what a fun show. You've got a lot of dealers there with lots of comic books, and then you've got just an absolute ton of creators all over the place. So, and I'm pretty excited. I'm ready to go. Well, I've got my books pretty much prepped and ready to go. What I haven't done is quite packed up yet. I've got my tickets. I got my tickets to the autograph signings for Frank Miller and Jim Lee. I haven't nailed down exactly what I'm going to get signed. There's still a few books. If you watched my previous video, you saw the majority of what I'm getting signed, but there's still a little question here and there. We'll figure it out before I go. But guys, I hope I see you there. If you see me, please come up and say hi. I'd love to meet you, and I'd love to see what kind of books you're picking up and tell me what you're looking for at the show. I'd love to get your impressions, and I'd love to meet you guys. So anyway, I just want to give a shout out to all that. I am so excited. I hope you guys are too, and I hope to see you there. All right, so let's get into the books. Where am I going to start here? I'll tell you what I'm going to do. We'll start with the WhatNot sellers, and I'm looking at the books right here. And we'll start with this. I picked this up from Erod 212, and these are 2 exclusives from the Comic Mint. These are not his exclusives. I don't think he actually does exclusives or anything like that, but he definitely picked these up at the show, and I thought they were kind of neat, and I really like this cover. This is Miles Morales, Spider-Man number 39. I've got my notes on the back, so I'm reading it here. New York Comic Mint, New York Comic Con exclusive. This is the Spidey drip cover, and I thought this was pretty spectacular looking. And sometimes, as much as I've gotten away from buying exclusive comics and everything, there's sometimes when the art is just so good that I'll go ahead and, okay, I'll roll the dice on it a little bit. And this looks spectacular. I thought, man, this is really neat. So I picked that up. And then also from Erod, I picked up, this is Spider-Man number 1, the brand new Spider-Man series. This is a Zulu homage to Ultimate Fallout number 4. And this is interesting style. I've been seeing the prices on some of these and some of the other channels kind of go up. So I took a small gamble on both of these. I didn't pay too much on all of this. I think all in all I paid maybe $45, $50 for the pair, actually, by the time it was all said and done. But I picked those up from Erod. And both of these are really nice pressable candidates. Although, personally, I will probably just hold on to these. I've slowed my orders to CGC, and I don't just jump on a book and send it in immediately, in most cases at this point. I'll sit back a little bit and see if it has any if it will sustain that value or the value keeps going up. I feel like I've been burned too many times with jumping on this hot property and get stuck with a book that then gets massively graded, and it floods the market and the value drops down. Some of the Berserker books come to mind. Some of those first ones that originally it was $125 book, 9.8s. All of a sudden now you can't even sell them for $48, $50. So, kind of holding back on some of this, and I'll hold on to these a little bit. I'll probably clean and press them anyway, just to make sure there's no ticks and everything, and have them in standby, and we'll see if the value, if there is any market for it. Now, from another YouTuber, and I realize that this was not an exclusive, but he definitely had some of the exclusive from the New York Comic Con. It was still the end of them selling this. This is from Mill Geek, and I picked up some of his exclusives in one of the previous videos, but I went back to his channel. He still had, on one of the other nights, he still had some exclusives on there, but I didn't pick up any of the exclusives this time, but he had some other older issues. And this right here, if you recognize this is Jungle Action number 5. This is, they say it's the first solo Black Panther story, but if I remember this right, this is a reprint of Avengers 62. If you go on the inside, it's a reprint, but it has a new cover and everything. It's not an original story. So I don't know. I'd have to go back and maybe read up on how Go Collect or Key Collector, how they describe this. But this is definitely in his first solo title. Now, the next issue, I think, is the issue where they introduce Killmonger. I think that's the issue. And that's a pretty high-priced book. I've got that one as well. I've actually gotten Rich Buckler when he was still alive. I got him at a show years ago to sign that copy of mine. It was a very, probably a little bit higher than a mid-grade copy that I had. So that's somewhere in the PC. But this one, I had this one too growing up. I read this book, read the cover off of this book practically. So it's nice to pick up a really clean copy. This is the only thing I picked up from Mill Geek. It looks really nice. I think a nice clean and press on this will make it come out really good. I'll have to check the values on this. This is more of one of those things where I literally just replaced a book from my childhood collection that brings back good memories. But what a great original cover here. I'm not sure, I'd have to look it up as well, but this definitely looks like a John Romita cover on here. It's just, man, that is spectacular. All right, so that was from WhatNot. Now, let's see, where am I going to go next? Tell you what, let's go ahead and open up the Heritage Auctions box. I have not even opened this yet. This is from a couple of auctions weeks ago, so it just came in. I hadn't been tracking it, but off the top of my head, I'm not even sure what I ended up getting here. The way I've been going with them lately has been I try to look at some of the raw books, and this is really secure, by the way. I'll look for really good value in some of the ungraded books, the raw books, and look for opportunities to buy something that then I can turn around and get graded and hopefully come out much better. Now, I've had some good success with this. A Thor 337 that was listed as very fine plus, near mint minus. I bumped that up to a 9.6. I actually eventually got that signed and graded from Walt Simonson. And there was a couple other books that I've had some success. The Captain America 113 with Jim Steranko. I bumped that up to supposedly they were grading it about an 8.5 raw. I bumped it up to a 9.0. That's not a big bump or anything, but so I've had some success in this. So let's see what we've got here. So here's the box. It's opened up. There's the invoice and some paperwork. Got two different, I think I should have two different things in here. Nice and bubble wrapped. It's in a nice Uline box. By the way, when I do orders online, or wherever I sell, when I send out a slab, this is where I take my example from Heritage Auctions. I use the exact same box and packages up almost exactly the way they do. In fact, I actually do a little bit better. I actually put a piece of backer board in the bottom and the top just to give it a little bit more security, just in case something tries to punch through or anything. But that is how I package. I package everything I send out when I sell stuff ends up, slabs that is, will be just like Heritage Auctions. All right, so we've got the package here. It is very, very taped up. And let's see if I can get into this quickly. Again, I've got the scissors. I don't have... Somewhere the knife went. The little orange knife I've been using has disappeared somewhere in here. If I ever would clean the family room where I do the shooting of this show, we might find that. We might find some other things too. I don't know. All right, here we go. Oh yeah, now I remember. All right, let's start with the raw. I picked up a copy of The Secret Six #1. You don't see me getting too much DC stuff, but I keep my eye out on certain things, and I always like the Secret Six storylines. Back in the day, I read some of these, but most of the ones I remember, if you've got some of the ones from the 90s and the 2000s and different Secret Six, but I love the history of it, and I always love this cover. What a strange cover. And I remember seeing this cover when I was growing up in some of the other DC books I had. I just loved, you'd see this advertised in one of the other books, and I remember seeing this cover, and it's always stuck in my mind. And when this auction popped up, I'm like, okay, it wasn't too expensive. They actually had this listed as a near mint minus. And for what I paid, and again, I don't have the price in front of me. I don't remember paying a lot for this, but I think this is one of those where if I can bump this up even more and get this into that 9.4, 9.96 range, who knows? I don't know. I'm sure it's got some pretty good value on there. I'm sure somebody would really, really like that. But yeah, this is just an absolute great cover. They did the Secret Six. I want to say, didn't they do this with Villains United? Right? It was part of that whole storyline with Catman, and I think Luther was in it, and they had some other Vandal Savage's daughter was in there. I love that character. I'm drawing a blank on her name though, but yeah, I just love that series. So that was some of the heritage from this right here. And then this is a book I've never had. I didn't have it. I had the annual before it. I've had the annuals after it. This is a point where I had been in the early 90s when I had stopped buying just about every annual that came out, and I missed over this, so it was a missed opportunity. But it is X-Men Annual number 14 in a 9.6, and I don't think this came out to probably about $129 by the time you got finished with the Heritage Auction fees and taxes and shipping and everything. But I never owned this. This is the other first appearance of Gambit. They say it is a cameo, but he's on multiple pages. Everybody has the debate on this one right here. But I felt like this was, at a 9.6, I thought this was a really good value. So I went ahead and picked it up so I can kind of mark it off my list right now. You guys know that I have been collecting a lot of the John Byrne X-Men, and I've been very happy at that 9.6 grade point. And I felt like this was acceptable. This is a big enough book. This should be as big as 266 with... No, I'm sorry. Is that right? Wait a minute. Is that right? The first appearance of Gambit? Oh my God. Is that right? If that's wrong, I'll correct myself here on the video. But this right here is technically the first appearance of Gambit. And it'll be interesting to see if we'll see a shift in that someday. It seems like this one has more traction than, say, Hulk 180 to becoming classified as the very first appearance. This is still technically a cameo, but as everybody knows, it's multiple pages. But I thought this was a really good value, and at a 9.6, I think I got a steal. So that's really good. So those were my Heritage Auction books. Here, I'll put these up here so you can still see them. And then that brings us to the last part of the video, where over the weekend I traveled down to West Virginia, where I've got another place, and along the way I stopped off at some comic book shops that I've stopped at before, and I've spotlighted on my show before. And the very first, actually I'll tell you what, the very first stop I will do that one as my last one because it's a very, very good book. But there was two other. We'll do the. I'll tell you what. Let's go in reverse order. We'll start with the very last shop that I went to, which was down in Harrisonburg, Virginia, a little place called the Secret Lair. And I don't usually get to be able to stop down there on the days that I'm usually able to go to my place in West Virginia. It's not usually open. They're small. I think they close on Mondays and Tuesdays and then reopen on Wednesday. And so on my way back on Tuesdays, I obviously I can't stop. And then on Sundays, it's just the timing doesn't work out exactly to get there when they're open. So this time I was able to go down on Saturday. And so I go in and I'm looking around, and I've talked about this before with, like, when you go into a shop, I feel like you're kind of obligated to maybe buy something. And I'm always looking for good things. But sometimes, as you may have remembered in one of my previous unboxings here a couple of videos ago, I talk about the exact same thing. It's like I still try to pick up at least one or two books, and they don't have to be expensive. It can be brand new books, right? Just to support them. I feel like when you go in there, you should support your local comic book shops, wherever they are. And so I always pick up something. And I started going through the bins, and I realized I wasn't finding some of the things that were on my short list. So I decided, okay, well, let's just keep looking. And I ended up running into, they had a copy of Miracle Man #2 from Eclipse. Now, this right here is the battle between Kid Miracle Man and just absolutely stunning artwork. I love this cover when it came out. I love the story. Now, of course, these reprint the stories that were, I guess, in Britain, and they've changed everything to be it used to be Marvel Man, but now it's Miracle Man. It's interesting. Marvel owns Miracle Man now. They could change the name. That's kind of interesting. So I've got multiple copies of this. Surprisingly, there's not a lot of value in this right here. This right here, maybe it's because I value sometimes story over first appearances just because it's the first appearance. This is a fantastic story right here. This part of the story, this origin of this reinvention of Marvel Man, Miracle Man by Alan Moore, this was just absolutely fantastic. And if you guys haven't ever read this series, this right here was my favorite issue. So, just saying. So I picked up a copy of that, and that was going to be my go-to comic just in case I couldn't find anything else. But I ended up looking on the wall. They had a small wall of some keys, and they had a very nice copy of Daredevil #10. This is the first cover appearance of Echo. And when this new series started coming out, I bought the first few issues, including the very first issue that I eventually got signed by Joe Quesada and got it graded. It was my first signature series comic from CGC I ever got a year ago from CGC. But I didn't continue with the series, and I dropped it by issues 4, 5, 6, something like that. And so I missed out on issues 9 and 10, the first appearances of Echo. And these have of course, these beautiful David Mack covers. David Mack had always been a great artist and everything, but these covers, I think, really, in my mind, put him on the map and made everybody fully aware of David Mack, of his art and everything. And the covers alone are just fantastic. And of course, you've got as I said, first cover appearance and the continuing of her story from the issue before. So those are the two I picked up from the Secret Lair. And I also said this was from the very last stop of the day. And before that, I had stopped off in Frederick, Maryland, and Walkersville, Maryland. And Walkersville, I went to a shop I've talked about before. It's called Brainstorm. I'm reading here, Comics and Gaming. I always forget the and gaming part of there. So they've got a lot of games. They've got a lot of back issues. They don't have as many wall books as I remember from the last time I was there. But they ended up having a wall of brand new DC books over here, and they had wall of Marvel and independent books over here. So there were some new books and everything, and I've pretty much had my fill for the month of new books. Well, of this week, I've had my new books. So I wasn't looking for anything, but they did have, the first thing that caught my eye was this beautiful cover of Catwoman number 48 that had just come out. This has got this beautiful Micah Sozu cover, and this is just absolutely stunning. Stunning artwork. And my understanding is she does everything digitally. She's a digital artist. And I'm going, and I don't know how I feel about that. I mean, the art is the art. She still created this. This is fantastic. But it's not, in terms of comic book collecting, it's not your traditional art, right? You don't have this piece of original art. Can you imagine this if she had painted this? And this was a stunning original art piece, but I guess there's just not. Where is the original art? I don't know. It's an interesting debate we could have in this industry, in this hobby, about the original source of the artwork and everything. But nonetheless, this cover is absolutely stunning. I've liked this probably a lot better than some of the other ones that had become very popular over the summer. Now, she was down at Heroes Con, and she was barely on my radar at that time, and I had knew nothing about her. And I remember not even knowing that she was there, but walking by this table, and I see the name, and I'm like, that name looks familiar. But as I said, I didn't know who she was, and there were two women standing right there. And it turned out, I believe it was her assistant. I don't know, and I had no idea. The way they were just standing there, they weren't talking with anybody. They weren't. There wasn't one sitting there doing art. I had no idea. So I had no idea who she was. So I didn't go up there to get anything signed. But now I'm going to regret that. This would have been, that's beautiful. I would have loved to have gotten that signed right there. But live and learn, and maybe we'll see her at another show at some point. And then the other thing I picked up was a copy of, this is Buffy Season 8, number 1. This is a Virgin cover. You've seen this on my videos before from one of my comic book hauls. The copy I picked up from an auction from Third Eye Comics in Annapolis ended up having a very nasty spine tick over here. And this right here was actually, of both of these were my obligation books. Not that I didn't want these, but these are the books. I wasn't finding a lot that I wanted to buy that day from Brainstorm Comics. They've got a bunch of books there, but I'm trying to get ready for Baltimore Comic Con. There's still a few books I'm still looking for, and they didn't have any of the ones I'm looking for. And after I found the Catwoman immediately, this right here, I found that, and I'm like, okay, I'm going to replace that in my collection, and there are my two books I'm going to get. I spent another half hour going through the boxes, and really nothing else jumped out at me. So this is what I picked up from Brainstorm Comics. Now, the first stop of the day, I intentionally went back there. There was a book I saw a couple weeks ago on my previous trip, and I was coming back through, and I saw this, and I had meant to stop. When I stopped, I found this book, and I didn't buy it at the time, and I'm going, am I going to regret this? Because the book looked in really nice shape, really just absolutely stunning shape, and I'm sitting there looking at it, going, there's a lot of potential in that book. And I passed on it. It wasn't cheap, but I passed on it, and I said, well, if I get a chance to go back, I'd like to talk to the owner and see if I can negotiate a few dollars off, because as I said, it wasn't cheap. And when I went back on this last Saturday, he wasn't there, but I talked with the person there who's running the shop that day, and he couldn't give me any discount on it. He said that's something the owner could do, and he wasn't available. And literally, they're getting ready to pull down their books to take to Baltimore Comic Con. They will be set up there, and this was one of those books that would have definitely been on the wall, and I pretty much can guarantee this book would not have lasted that long at the show. And I'm glad I went ahead and picked it up at the full price. I don't have any regrets. But let me just show you the book. One of my favorites. It's Spider-Man 122. It's not the first time I've picked this book up over this last year. In fact, it's not the first time this is the second time I've picked up this book from the same shop. This one is in much better shape than the first one I got. The first one I got, I think I ended up with a, I think I overestimated the grade that I thought I could get on it, and ended up with a, I think I want to say about a 6.5. And looking back on it, okay, they had a few more creases than I really paid attention to, and there was definitely a dog ear down here that broke color, and I know that you can get banged on that really bad. Well, I saw this on that previous trip, and I took a photo of it so I would remember it, so I could basically take a look at it later and take a better look at it. And this is a really clean copy. These corners are sharp. There's no dog ears. There's no round. If there's any rounding, I think a little bit of a press will help that out a little bit. It's not rounded because of wear. It's just rounded because it may overlap the interior pages a little. But there is a tick, color breaking tick right here. But other than that, it is super clean. And the person running the shop that day, I asked him, could you take it out? Let me take a look at the back of it, because that's something I hadn't done before. So before I made a decision, we took the book out, we took a look at the back. The back has, of course, a white border from ads from this time. Were pretty much like that. And everything back there looked like it could just use a light cleaning and just a press. Everything looked really good. And then we did a flip through the book to make sure that it was complete, that we didn't miss anything like that. And interestingly, he pointed out on the back here, where is it there? Right there, there's a little tag. It says 7.5 to 8.0. Now, this was the owner's own grading of what he felt like this book was. And I think straight up right now, if I didn't do anything to it, I think, yeah, maybe you're right about that. But I don't know. Unlike the last time where I think I overestimated it, this is one I think that I can really push much further than an 8.0. I'm hoping I could get this thing up to a 9.92 level, and that would be spectacular. I'm really happy with this. I would love to get a better grade in my collection, so I'd love to get this one up in a much higher grade than my previous one. Then I can sell the other one and, move on from it and everything. But just to give you guys a little recap on history on this. This right here, growing up, this was the very first Spider-Man book I ever read or owned. Now, I did have some older Silver Age books that were part of I found them in my grandparents' house. I'm not counting those because this one is definitely one that I picked off right off the stand as a young child. And I love this. I never knew what happened to Gwen Stacy in the previous issue. It was years later before I finally saw a reprinted version somewhere along the way where I saw what happened, and that the fact is that Spider-Man's the one who actually, his actions are what ended up killing her at the very end. I mean, he tried to save her, and, he ended up snapping her neck. And just, it was a bad thing. Oh, hold on. Monitor is going to sleep. There we go. So I never knew what happened in that story, but this is where like I said, my very first Spider-Man. A couple years ago, when they had a Marvel show where they were traveling around the country showing off the original artwork as well as the MCU props and armors from Iron Man and from the movies, and doing this big traveling exhibit. One of the pieces of original artwork was this cover right here. And wow, if you guys ever get a chance to see the original artwork to this, of course it's in black and white and much larger. It's, that 12 by 18-ish size. And it is just absolutely, the line work on here, the inking on here, man, it just jumps out. We tried to leave the show 3 times. And every time we got to the door, I said, I've got to go back and take a look at this again. I just need to absorb this and take it in just a little bit more. It was so good. So, anyway, guys, that is it. That is the short little haul from the last couple weeks. I will, in the next couple days, I'm going to have another video, and I will put somewhere on the screen, I'm looking here, somewhere I will put a link to the video for Friday, so you guys can see that. Friday is the first day of Baltimore Comic Con. I will do filming there. I'm not sure how I'm going to do the shows over the weekend, or if I'm going to wait to Monday to do a follow-up show on the whole thing. I would like to do a show each night and give you guys a daily recap of what's going on, but I may run out of time. I just may not have enough time during the day to film and do everything I want to do, and then come back and edit everything that night to get it on air the next day. So I may end up waiting a couple of days, but as I said, I will put somewhere around here, I'll put a link to Friday's show. It's going to be another comic book haul from some of the other WhatNot places I've been picking up stuff from, some dealers that I really like. I'm going to spotlight those guys again because I've also got some really good books from them as well. And then, as I said, starting at that point, we got Baltimore Comic Con, and what did I say? I want to meet you guys. I hope you guys run into me and say hi. And after that, we'll have at least one, but my guess is we'll have at least 3 or 4 episodes where I'll go over Baltimore Comic Con and everything that went on that I experienced. So that's it, guys. The video ended up going a little bit longer than I expected. I hope you watched the whole video, and if you enjoyed this kind of content, please hit the subscribe button and hit the thumbs up. Actually, hit the thumbs up if you liked it. I guess that's the way to put it. If you haven't already subscribed, I encourage you to subscribe. Everybody who has already subscribed, thank you so much for support, and I will talk to you guys in the next show. Take care.